everybody wants to feel like they're normal or they're in the same wavelength as everyone else. No one wants to feel different. I always thought, well, I'm still struggling, so how can I talk about this and help people? And what I've realized that that's not true. I can struggle myself and still have this perspective and still try to help others or just give them the courage to speak. What I'm feeling towards myself and how much I hate that I can't do it and figure it out is 10 times more than you will ever feel it.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Guiding Tides podcast. Today we have a special guest with us, and her name is Nicole Triani, and I'm very excited to see how this conversation unfolds. So, Nicole, thank you for joining us.
What's up,
Please
Nicole?
introduce
Hi, guys.
yourself
Hey, Nicole.
and give us some background about you, okay?
Yes, my name's Nicole. Super excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me. So I am from Foxborough, born and raised, newly 37, and I am an esthetician and a makeup artist. And unfortunately, my life kind of has been surrounded a little bit with my mental health struggles, anxiety, depression, kind of ebbing and flowing from pretty early age. I would say it kind of started around, a little prior to high school, but probably was brewing prior to that. And it's just been, definitely a struggle, but I feel like I'm at the point in my life where I'm wanting to talk more about it and advocate more. I feel like it's a way to find somewhat of a silver lining in it, to open the discussion and to kind of share my experiences and, my journey with this. So.
That's great. Well, welcome to our podcast. And with that introduction, I right away am curious about, you started defining a timeline of when you started experiencing your anxiety pre-high school.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, those earlier memories are always like a little fuzzy. I think probably as a child, I was kind of manifesting a little bit of the worries. My parents divorced very young, or when I was very young. And so even if it's a situation where we were lucky enough, my brothers and I, to have them both in our lives and, there for us, it's still a separation at such a young age where you're kind of bouncing around, which does bring chaos. It just does. Even if it's a healthy
Sure.
situation, it's going to bring chaos. So I'm sure it started to kind of develop from that. But again, I had a great childhood. I, was lucky to have what I had. I had a lot of family around all the time,
That's
a
amazing.
lot of support. Right. And I think then what I remember, a little bit prior to going into high school, so, around 14, 15, is when I think it started out just like worrying and like kind of understanding what I was worrying about, but not fully, and not understanding where it was kind of coming from.
Were you worrying about like everything in life, or was it just specific things like school, family?
I'm curious if your parents remarried too, or if they were dating, bringing different people in and out of your life.
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that, because so that's another component. Yes, they both did. One of them kind of dated for a little bit prior to, but ended up getting married, and then my father also got remarried. So again, that's bringing in
New people? Mhm.
new things to adjust to at an age that
You don't
you
fully
you're
understand.
not taught how to do that. You just kind of do it.
If I can add too, it's your parents are taking a percentage of attention that was solely given to you or whatever, and that's the waters are getting muddy. There's attention going elsewhere. Maybe during some of the most critical years of your life. I don't know. I wasn't there, but I am the father of two young children who are the product of separations. So this is something I'm sensitive to now as an adult, and I'm honing in and listening here.
Which is awesome, and I think that's a great thing, because you can think about the things that you want to do for them to kind of help them feel comfortable. But I think it's also important to talk to people who have actually experienced it.
Mhm.
And, my parents were also still relatively young when this was happening too. So I have to give grace to that. They're still trying to figure out
Their
certain
life.
things as young adults or, you know, and trying to figure out a way to make, like me and my brothers at that time comfortable with all of this new stuff. And I think like anything in life is just like communication
Mm.
and
Communication is key.
really listening and not kind of brushing things off. Um, because it might be easier in some situations or life gets hectic and it's kind of like, all right, we need to check in. Like, how are you feeling about this? I know this might be a little overwhelming. You're moving around a lot. Like you're going to mom's and then you're going to dad's and you're forgetting things and then you're feeling guilty like I forgot my books and now I have to get my books and little things like that where I feel like adults at the time maybe don't understand that could be something long term that affects you and starts to make you feel
You
like
manifest
on
it.
edge. Like, am I doing everything? Am I remembering everything? And
It's a lot of
oh,
responsibility
am
for
I with
somebody that
mom or dad this
age.
weekend? Like,
Yeah.
and again, I want to preface that these are all things that everybody's navigating the situation, but as a child, you don't have the tools.
Right.
You just don't. And so yeah, so I think that part of it definitely was probably a contributing factor to how
The worrying
it
started and it
started.
manifested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then where it kind of took a little bit of a turn was, and this particular thing that I'm going to talk about is kind of ebbed and flowed up until this point, is it turned into a lot of health anxiety. Which, just the worries kind of, I feel like needed a place to go.
Your health, your children's health, or both?
So I don't have children, but
Sorry, I was
yeah,
thinking of my children.
that's okay.
I worry about my children's health. That's where I
Yeah,
was
and
going.
that's a
As
huge
do I.
part of it. I mean, so it was myself at the time. As I've gotten older, I think it's become myself and others.
I've seen others project onto their partners or,
Yeah.
family members.
Yep. So yeah, I definitely noticed that I was just like worrying about, and a lot of it came from physical stuff. So like if I felt a certain pain or if I felt like I was getting sick, normal people would be like, well, I don't want to say normal people, but generally people would be like, okay, I just gotta fight through this and, I'm gonna be okay, I gotta rest. Where my brain didn't allow me to kind of stop there. Like it just wanted to spiral. Like it just had this need to spiral. And actually, interestingly enough, one of my brothers, he experienced something similar with health anxiety right after my grandmother passed away. His thankfully was pretty short. He was able to kind of figure it out and get over it in like, a relatively healthy way. But mine just didn't, unfortunately. And went into high school and I had a great experience in high school. I had a great group of friends. I, was busy. I worked a part-time job. I was a cheerleader. I was a dancer. I was doing things. But looking back, there was definitely certain things that were showing these signs of struggle. Such as there were days where like I didn't want to get out of bed to go to school. And it ended up kind of like being a joke. My friend's like, oh, is Nicole going to show up to school today?
That's exactly what happened to me, so I understand.
Yeah. And at the time, obviously I would laugh about it. But now it's like, I just remember waking up and being like, I cannot get out of this bed. Like I can't, like it felt like if I did, like something terrible was going to happen. Did I know what it was? Did I have these, specific things? It was just more generalized. And I remember just being like to my mom, like, I can't go to school today. And she's like, Nicole, like you got to get up. And it was like hard for me because I felt like I couldn't articulate how heavy that feeling was.
Yeah.
And so then, if I didn't go, as soon as I was told that I didn't have to go, it was like I felt like everything was lifted off me and I was okay in that moment.
You could breathe.
I could breathe.
Yeah.
But then what would happen is later on that day, the guilt would set in.
Oh, that's the worst.
Like I would say, you know what, maybe I should have went, and like what happened today, and like now is it going to be hard, and then the
the
spiral
assignments
starts.
that
Then
build
the
up and
right,
all that. Yep.
exactly, and so then I go from like this spectrum of thoughts to this spectrum of thoughts, and it's just overwhelming, So, and again, obviously things continue on with my story.
Any hospitalizations or anything ever get that bad, like or feel that severe where you felt like you had to go?
Definitely felt that severe, but no, I didn't. I guess it's probably easier just now to kind of continue on with like my story, if that works for you, just to kind of keep it flowing.
Yeah, go ahead. Hit it.
So to kind of try to sum it up, because it's a long time. I mean, I'm 37, so it's many years of going through different things. And obviously you're growing, and so you're, in high school, you're this and that, and then you get to your early 20s and you're trying to find your identity, and that type of stuff comes with it. I went to a community college right out of high school and was working, and I was starting to kind of get into my small business, which is being a makeup artist. And during that time, I think I was convinced like I'm doing okay, and on the weekends I was going to visit friends that stayed at school. I was commuting. But I look back and I just know that I definitely wasn't truly happy
You
with
weren't
where I
100%
was. No,
yourself.
I was convincing myself because I was busy doing the things that I was doing that I was okay, but I wouldn't consider that time in my life that I was feeling good and feeling excited about my future or what it was going to entail, in that
All the
period of time.
unknowns.
Yeah, exactly. And then kind of fast forward to more towards my late 20s. I did transfer to a 4-year school, graduated. I got a psychology degree, thought that maybe I wanted to work with kids, wasn't sure, but knew I loved the beauty aspect and was doing makeup as well. So still kind of in that figuring out zone, which I think starts the whole like, okay, but what is everyone else doing? Or like they might seem like a little ahead of me, and okay, what are all these pressures that are happening, which again is just going to contribute to someone who already has a baseline of anxiety and worrying and that type of stuff. So where things really took a turn and honestly just totally changed my life was I went through a breakup my late 20s, and it hit me harder than I think I really anticipated it to do.
Did you end the relationship or did they?
They did. I think I knew deep down that it should have been ended, but I think sometimes as women, we want so bad for something to work. Um, but again, on the flip side, I also knew that things that were happening weren't best for me and weren't fair to me. But yes, ultimately, yes, I was broken up with, and I was continuing on. I was working, and I was just kind of trucking along. And it was like, I just remember slowly just feeling like the anxiety that I had that had been sort of at bay, but I was kind of containing with a medication that I had been on for, at that point, probably like 10 years. And I felt like it was helping. I was happy with it. I, didn't make any changes with it. I think what happened is I think when you get out of a breakup, you kind of think, I've got this. Like, I'm good. I'm going to go hang out with my friends. I'm going to,
My
do
life is
things for
back.
me.
Yep.
And, you have that whole, because you want that ultimately. But then your brain kind of says, hey, actually, no, you're really not okay. You're not healed from this. You need to kind of look inward and see how you can kind of manage this right now. I ended up going to try to get some help as far as looking into the medication that I was on to make adjustments. Obviously wanted to start talk therapy again, which I had done earlier on in high school a little bit.
Now, question, are
Yeah.
you currently with a therapist right now?
I'm currently in between therapists, but I still am on medication that is monitored.
Awesome. Good.
I laugh because there was a couple of year period for me where I was like habitually in between, or like conveniently always like in between.
I
And
know. I
yeah,
know. And it's something that is so important, and you know, and I knew it from the time period that I was doing it, the importance of it.
Can I expand on that a little bit?
Yeah.
So thank you so much again for being here, for sharing your story. And I think it's a story that a lot of people that are watching can relate to. You know, you have a family system and it's not the Brady Bunch, you know, it's reality. Parents separate and their intent is to love you, to be there for you. You know, nobody comes with instructions, right? And they're struggling through their divorce, they're struggling to be parents, everyone's trying their best. Nevertheless, here you are dealing with the ramifications of going through that experience, and life is coming in on you, and you're trying to cope,
Yeah.
right? You're trying your best to cope and go through high school.
Without any tools at that age, you
No.
know?
You know, you're just taking it day by day, and it's hitting you with school avoidance, right? It's hitting you with, I'm not prepared for the day. I don't know what I'm feeling, but it's not good. So you said that you started therapy in high school. What I'm curious is, how did that come about where you said, there's something here that's not good and I got to do something about this?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I know that I kind of skipped over that a little bit. So a little ways into high school, just, with the worrying, with a little bit of the health anxiety, kind of going to my parents a lot, being like, something doesn't feel right. Am I okay? Kind of those type of conversations that were just happening a lot and were not slowing down. And so ended up having a conversation with probably my mom at that time, and her saying, maybe it's a good idea for us to go and, sit down with a therapist and just kind of talk some of these things through. And um, I did, and I think my initial, I mean, it's a little foggy, but my initial was okay. I don't think, if I'm being honest, I don't think that I was in the space to really be able to absorb that at that time.
How old were you?
I was 16. So, yes, was it a place where like I could talk? But I'm thinking about, what am I going to do when I leave here? Like, am I going to meet up with my friends? It's very hard to
Your
have
brain is not
exactly
developed
exactly.
enough to understand what's going on.
Right,
And then
right,
you're meeting with this person that you've never met before, and you're
right.
supposed to be able to be like spewing all this information to them. And you're just kind of like, I don't know, what's next?
Yeah, and if I'll be honest,
You know?
if they're talking in their, I want to say this in a politically correct way, in their big words, and you're a 16-year-old and you're kind of like, what are they even talking about?
Yeah.
If
Can you
that makes
relate to what
sense.
they're saying? Can they
Yeah.
relate to
And
you?
they're talking, they're pulling from their textbooks and their
Yeah, the DSM and
DSM. Yep.
yeah.
So yeah, and then I did get on a medication, like a low dose of, I don't even remember what it was at this point, but it was an SSRI, so for anxiety.
Did that
And
help?
I think maybe, but then I ended up I stopped taking it. I just kind of just decided, maybe at the time I didn't need it, or maybe I was just not taking consistently because I was young, and maybe it wasn't,
You didn't
they
understand
weren't
the
on top of
severity
it.
of it.
Right,
Yeah.
which now obviously is a totally different situation. As you get older, you realize. Um, so yeah, so that was like the introduction to getting like the help portion of it. And then later on it became a much larger tool.
Yeah, because I work with teenagers. Well, doing my day gig, I work with teenagers all day. I work at a high school. And I have a therapy practice on the side, and I have teenagers that I work with. And the general approach that my clients have is, well, fix this. I'm like, I got nothing. It's all you. And they're like, ugh, more of this, you know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, someone else
fortune
telling me
cookie
that I
crap.
gotta
Digging
figure this
deep, son.
out, and I
Yeah.
gotta, Yeah.
And they're like,
Yeah.
I don't know where to start. I was like, yeah, I know, but that's it. So the ability to reflect, the, the expectation to have a 16-year-old reflect is a setup,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I honestly see therapy for teenagers more behavior modification
Right.
than
Right.
it is therapy.
Yeah.
To
Yeah. That's a good. Yeah.
engage in
Definitely.
therapy, you have to be introspective and reflective.
So give us a for example of the latter.
Well, okay, how old are you now?
41.
All right, so 41, you have life experience,
Sure.
right? You're a father, you've been in serious relationships, you've had your ups and downs, you've had different jobs to reflect on. You've had emotional highs, you've had emotional lows. During those emotional lows, at different points of your life, you and I could discuss what are the common factors that brought you to those emotional lows. At 16, how much ground has been covered for those emotional lows? Now, certain 16-year-olds will be like, well, I started cutting at 10, I started drinking at 11, I ran away at 12, I started prostituting at 13. Okay, there's a lot of damage there,
Yeah.
And
a lot of active behaviors that
right.
are
So
happening.
there's a lot to dissect.
Avalanching.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's and there's a lot of experience to dissect, right? But your average run-of-the-mill kid from Foxborough who's going through high school and doesn't have any friends and feels like I don't have the self-esteem equipped to deal with this, their life experience has been elementary school, middle school, getting picked on, maybe not doing well in their sports and feeling like crap.
Right.
So life experience-wise, not much to reflect on. But to be goal-oriented and to strive towards goals, that's behavior modification. Right. That's attitude, So going back to when you started engaging in therapy, I'm curious when you started saying, yeah, I started with the medication, didn't stick with it. I'm wondering, was a lot of that due to the fact that you're expecting to be cured or...
And did you ever have a therapist at that age that like had your number, and like cut through the BS and like could talk
challenged
to
you?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Not till later on in life where I did have that, thankfully. But no, at that point, I mean, I think like I remember it being a lot of times I was like laying down on the couch and doing like meditation type of stuff, which again, I just don't think that I had the capability at that age to really
Grasp it.
Yeah, I mean now, I think those things are wonderful, especially because they really do work for a lot of people depending on their situation. But
It's also buy-in. If you're telling me to sit down, cross-legged, and say "Om" for an hour, I'm
Yeah.
like, what?
and I'm like, yeah, but I'm meeting my friends at the mall in like an
Yeah.
hour.
But
Right.
if
Like,
you
you
but
know
if
what
you
I
were bought
mean?
into that,
But if
Like,
I
I
was bought
hate
into
to-
it, right? But if I was
Well,
bought
your
into it, yeah.
priorities as a teenager are so much different
Yeah,
than
how's my
what
hair?
your priority. Yeah, exactly. So like you're struggling with this, but yet you're still thinking about what you have to do to make yourself happy because that's the only type of joy that you get, and it's with your
Yes.
friends or if you're doing an activity or you're keeping busy. So your brain doesn't have time to think about all these things that are going on.
And I think you just hit a good point. And to kind of piggyback that is that you're not really understanding the full like capacity of what it really is.
Yeah.
Now I have so much knowledge on it, however many years later. But at the time, yeah, I think the other thing too is, like you were saying, I had so many other things going on that maybe somehow I was thinking, well, yeah, I am struggling and my parents are kind of a little worried about these certain things, but like I'm still doing all these things. Like I'm still, I'm not flunking out of school. I'm not showing up to, my practices that I have to be at that are mandatory, So
high functioning.
yeah, right. And again, still at that age it's just interesting. It's not the same as an adult going and really working through their issues with the therapist and really identifying all these things and, then talking about, okay, where did this stem from? Like we are today. Like you can't go, oh, well, it stemmed from 2 and this happened.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can, but I certainly couldn't.
As
Right.
a recovered alcoholic, I'm really lucky because in my teenage years, I came like face to face with, with death and annihilation, and there was no direction I could confidently step in. So, totally surrendering and then being able to buy in to things like meditation and therapy and uh, dialectical behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, all the classics, impervious to them for a long time until I hit my bottom. With substance users, it's like that, but I also see, in the treatment scape, a lot of connective tissues. I mentioned a bottom. What was your bottom, do you feel, or have you had many
Yeah.
different ones like I have?
So good timing, because I'm just about to approach that. So perfect. So yeah, so it was kind of like, what I was saying after that breakup, and it was like my brain and my body and everything at the time was telling me, yeah, this isn't just going to go smoothly for you, Nicole. Like,
It was almost like a system shutdown.
it was. And I have to say too, like, it wasn't really such a gradual thing. Like, I remember that summer, after that had happened, which was not far off. It was like all of a sudden I was experiencing these physical symptoms, which my anxiety presents extremely physical.
As does
Which
mine.
is something that, like, I would love to chat about more, but I just started, getting panic attacks, but not understanding that there were panic attacks, even though I knew so much about that. And then just generalized, like going to work and just like not feeling right, having these really weird sensations, feeling my emotions were all over the place. And I remember this distinct conversation with my father, actually. I called him from work really upset. And he's like, Nicole, he's like, you just got out of a relationship, that you were with this person for a while. You wanted a future with them. This wasn't just like a 6-month fling, that you have to understand that you have to deal with these feelings and things as they come and identify it. So I think what I wasn't doing is I was like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And it was
You weren't looking into that deep
no,
scope of what it is.
right. And I don't think I really wanted to admit that it was stemming from that, because sometimes we just have general anxiety, but a lot of times we know in life that things are gonna happen based on experiences, based on trauma. They manifest that way.
What do you think? So when you said you didn't want to identify why it was happening,
I think it would just be admitting that this was really damaging me. And
so accepting where you are, but at the same time wanting to deal with it, but at the same time ignoring it,
right, which
and
is just
faking it.
which is just building that perfect storm, which is essentially what started to happen. So to kind of get to the next portion is I decided to go see someone who could talk with me about my medication that I had been on. And she had said to me, this specific woman, well, maybe it's time for you to come off of this specific medication. Maybe it isn't working for you anymore, and we need to try something different. Now, in hindsight, and I want to look at the camera for this, I know that I never should have done what was told to me would be a solution, which is to come off of a medication that I had been on for a long time when I'm already in this emotional, really hard time. It could have been like, okay, let's increase this, or let's try the talk therapy for a while in addition to this and see, or maybe let's add something. In hindsight, if I had known that, I never would have done what I had done.
Wait, she just recommended stop cold turkey?
Nope,
Without replacing it with anything?
she recommended coming off and adding something in, which I knew, which is normally what they would do, but
In the
to
state that you were
me, the
in.
state that I was in, I didn't realize what that was going to entail.
The waters were already rocky.
Right.
And that just completely shipped.
Yes. So
Cruise down the wrong canal.
this started the coming over the mountain to go over the other side. So
So what did that crash look like?
how it started is we started to slowly taper off this medication. Now, this specific medication, it's actually called Effexor.
I was just going to ask you if it was Effexor.
So when I had got on it, what they recommended was, because I've learned a little bit about, medications obviously over the years, is that it's an SSRI and an SNRI, if that sounds correct, SNRI. So it hits 2 brain receptors, which, okay, awesome, great. But they don't tell you coming off of that is not easy.
And even if you titrate like down, it's still,
Yep.
yeah. I had my own experience with it, so
Okay. So yeah. So
that's why I'm like speechless and tripping over my words, because it's like, how do you even explain?
So I want to say this in a way where I absolutely do not think that I'm comparing this to someone getting off of a hardcore drug. I've never done it. I want to be sensitive to that. I remember overhearing someone on the phone talking to someone else saying that they felt like it was like me coming off of heroin. And again, I want to be sensitive. I don't know if that's the same, but it was their opinion on how it was for me, and in similar ways of how it would be described by someone coming off of something like that.
I didn't sleep more than 40 minutes at a time for an entire week straight. It was a 3-week withdrawal process for me. In the middle week, no sleep.
And were you getting on
Suicidal?
something?
Yes.
Were you?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Were you getting on something else?
No,
They were just
unfortunately,
tapering you?
it was my situation was I had been seeing a provider who I felt was like very overpriced and taking advantage of my father. It wasn't my money, awfully convenient time for me to be noble all of a sudden with my dad. But I wanted to stop seeing the guy. I thought he was a D-bag, and I had enough of, I thought I had enough of a month's supply to create my own, what I thought very responsible step down, and stuck
Right. And
to
you
it.
weren't just you knew enough to not obviously stop it.
You're right.
You knew to taper.
We didn't have ChatGPT back
But you
then.
didn't. Yeah, I know,
But,
right?
it
Oh
took me a
gosh.
little while to realize how dangerous of a withdrawal that is.
And I think a lot of people don't understand the severity of
No.
getting on a medication. That didn't work. All right, time to get off that medication. Okay,
Like when
what's
to
the
call
side
it when to
effects?
call it quits on a
Exactly.
medication too.
Yeah.
Like
Right. And
some of them you need
that's
like a
kind of
month or
where
two.
it put me into. So this woman said, okay, well, you're gonna experience some of this, but as the new medication starts to kind of come in and we're kind of crossing
It's gonna
paths.
compensate.
Hopefully,
Yes.
did it
Well,
for
no.
you? No.
So basically what happened is what was happening from there is I eventually somehow got off the initial medication, and then I was literally sent into a complete med crisis where I was, and I don't say that lightly, where I was being put on something and I was just in a state that, like, I think I can articulate things well, but this is one thing that is very hard to put into words. I was having wall to wall 24 hours a day, panic attacks, anxiety, fear, like the most, think about someone who's in fight or flight. Okay, you can kind of get yourself out of it. Like, no, this was back to back, wall to wall.
Did you physically feel the electrical current stuff? Brain zaps.
brain
But
zaps.
for me,
Oh,
it
the
was
brain
spine.
zaps are
It was
Brain
up and down
zappers
my legs.
all
It was.
day
I felt like I
long.
could shoot electricity out of my fingertips if I tried.
It literally, it is I mean, there's no other way to say it. It is scary. It is so scary. And so what she was doing is she was kind of like just throwing me on one, and I'm like, this isn't working, and then this isn't. She'd throw me on another one. Like it was pretty dangerous what was happening, if I'm being completely honest. And now this was 10 years ago. So now I can.
Meanwhile, this was all outpatient on an outpatient basis too. Like you weren't in a place being
Yeah, in a
observed.
safe place
And
where
I wasn't
yeah.
even, and I wasn't with a therapist at the time. It was just her. doing the medication
So
stuff.
no one to talk to and process.
Yep. So at the time, I had actually moved in with a longtime friend of mine, our like apartment together. And after a few months of being there, I had to move back in with my mother. Was in my childhood bedroom. Literally didn't leave the house until I finally. The one thing I will say, give myself a little credit here, is I didn't stop trying to find a new provider, a new therapist. Like I just was like, if you can do one thing today, Nicole, make some calls. Like just keep trying. I
Sorry, I was going to say, I do not know them, so this is like not a shot, but like, where were your parents during this? What kinds of supports, if at
Yeah,
all, were
no,
they?
they were great. My
Thank
mom
God.
she was scared herself, but just like having her there and like trying. My dad's always been sort of the voice of reason. He doesn't get worked up. He's just, that's his nature.
Strong,
That's how
silent
my
type.
dad is too. He's
Yeah.
always positive side, like
Yeah.
we're gonna work this
Yeah.
out.
Or he was kind of probably that time the only one that could really like fully get me down, to at least
Talk you off that ledge.
right. And yeah, I mean, I remember at that point, I mean, when I was living with my mom, I was calling him like 10 times a day, like at minimum. And, he would again try to talk me down and, but he also tried to not feed into the, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, Nicole, oh my God. You know what I mean?
The
Because
hyper
that
stage,
wasn't
right.
gonna
That wasn't gonna help you
benefit
at all,
me.
no.
Right. Which is obviously what I needed. So finally I found this therapist on a whim. I got in with him and we started talking. I started explaining everything. And he said, yeah, like whatever's going on with these medications, like this is not okay. Thankfully, his wife was a psych NP. So
That changed my life. Meeting with a psych NP completely changed my life.
and I went and met with her probably like the next week. I think he went to her and said, listen, like you need to,
Intervene here.
thank
Yeah.
God, right? And she just said, listen, she's like, I'm going back old school because they were putting me on medications that were like kind of newer. So the scene,
Yeah.
again, hindsight,
Did they go to Prozac from Effexor?
we tried a couple, but they ended up putting me on one that was newer and the side effects were stomach issues. I mean, I couldn't eat for like 3 days. I was laying in like the fetal position on top of being
Already
so
riddled with
incredibly
anxiety.
anxious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a no. And she went back and we tried, she put me in right away on Celexa. After asking some certain questions with me, she's like, I stay with all the old school, like Prozac and Celexa and
Zoloft.
Zoloft. Yes. And she said, this is going to be a process, Nicole. She's like, I need you to work with me. Like, I'm not just going to take you off of this. We have to give it time. It's going to be a really difficult time in between, but like, please just try your best to work with me. And I did. We ended up adding in something else. We added in a mood stabilizer,
I'm
which
on a
she
mood stabilizer
said
too, which is
was
life changing
yeah.
for me.
And she said, it's not only is it gonna boost what the SSRI is doing, but because you are all over the place with what's going on, you need something to, in addition to really like calm
Bring you to center.
all of this right.
So was that therapist able to teach you those skills to ground you?
So he was great. He was sensitive enough, but also straightforward enough for me. He had that balance that I needed at that time. And like we joked years later, he's like, I think your first like 10 sessions with me, you just cried the whole time. And we could joke about it then, but he's like, I just would. And the ultimate thing during that time was I just kept saying to him, like, I just need an end time. I just need to know when this is going to end. Like, I need to know when I'm going to get, like, at this point, I wasn't working. I wasn't seeing anybody. I mean, I lost my life. Like,
You isolated yourself to the point
yeah.
where you didn't know where to turn.
I literally was like, I lost everything. Thankfully, I had a good support system. Sorry, choked up.
Okay.
But it was awful. Like it was something that I would never wish on anybody. And so thankfully with him, he just kept saying like, you just have to keep working with me, Nicole. You have to try to trust me and try to know that like this is, and that's the hardest thing about life. Like we want it now.
Yeah.
We want it, we
Instant
don't want
gratification.
unpredictability. We don't want something that's an open-ended. All of that is like the biggest trigger.
It is.
You know, if I went to his office and he said, all right, 6 months, Tuesday afternoon, you're good, you're golden, you know, but that's
Because there was an
not
end in sight. But
right.
with what we're struggling with,
Right.
there is no end in sight.
Right. And I remember just saying to him, you know, this can't be my life. Like, if this is going to continue to be my life, I can't do this. Like, what is the point of this? And I had spoken a couple times during that, you know, I want to be completely transparent, during that time frame with both my parents, like, do I need to check myself in somewhere during this? At least during the time of like getting my medication straight.
In check, yeah.
And you know, I had conflicting views, and I won't get into that too much. I think one of the views of no was out of protection for me, and knowing my personality and wondering if that would make me worse, or if there was just conflicting views, where there was some views that were like, this could be really helpful for you, and this could really get you in a good place. And I think I was so confused on what to do. Like, during that time, making decisions felt impossible.
And was this about 10 years or more ago?
Yes.
So yeah, certainly a different time. Any kind of like psychiatric inpatient facility in Massachusetts, at least, you know, accessibility first and foremost was
Oh,
shot.
right.
Yeah, it was like
Right.
good luck trying to find a bed.
Now it's so different, though. You know, there's
Yeah.
so many different options.
Well,
Like,
there's
for
even
me,
levels of care too. Like people
100%, yeah.
don't know like inpatient and residential are two different levels of care. And like one, you're gonna be locked in. There's gonna be a straitjacket maybe involved.
And
Like
that
people are
is
hurting each other.
right.
And the other is a lot more de-escalated.
Right.
And
And
if
I
you
think
were to
we
go
were
in the wrong one
programmed.
at that moment, that could
Right.
be disastrous.
And I think we were so programmed too at that time, especially because I had people who worked in that area, so like had been exposed to that. And we're just scared of that happening to me. Going in there, getting stripped of everything, getting thrown random medications, talking to someone maybe once every couple days. And
with substances, it's like go in an alcoholic, come out a crackhead, or come out, wanting to try
right. And
heroin.
I
And it
and
doesn't
I
quite work like that, but that does, you hear
right.
that story, it
And I think
progresses.
when you're in that state and you're grasping at anything, like you're grasping at just somebody effing help me.
Relief.
Anybody.
Relief.
Anybody,
Yeah.
literally anybody. Like, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do, whatever. If you can help me, like, here, I'm good. And, so I kind of want to pivot too with some of the physical stuff that I was feeling, because I think it's important to talk specifics, like I was saying before. So the big thing that was really traumatizing to me during that time that I don't think is really spoken about a lot, we talk about heart palpitations, we talk about sweaty palms, we talk about dizziness, all those general things that you experience with generalized anxiety and, within a panic attack.
Sure.
I started experiencing something that was something I never had experienced in my life, which was, which I now know the term is derealization or depersonalization.
Okay.
Wow.
Um,
Okay, you got my attention.
yeah. So, and it started to feel like I was outside of my own body. Everything felt detached. I felt like I was in a room, but I wasn't really in a room.
Everything was out of reach.
Yep. I felt like things were, it was, and that was back to back, wall to wall. That wasn't like, hey, this happened this morning and, oh, that was a weird feeling. Okay, let me move on with my day. It was back to back. And I remember talking to my therapist and explaining this and being like, I think I'm going crazy. Like, I have to be. Like, you don't experience this without, like, maybe this is manifesting into something else. Like, I truly did not understand how that could be with a severe anxiety and probably a little bit of the medication aspect. And I was petrified. I was absolutely petrified. And also I was like a little embarrassed to even try to explain that to anyone else, because I didn't want them to be like, oh, well, that's weird. I've never heard of that before. Like, no one wants that.
Or we got to lock you up and throw away the key.
Exactly. Right. And I remember I was trying to think about the first person I spoke to about this that had said that they had experienced it, but just briefly. Like they would have a point in their day where maybe they were a little stressed and all of a sudden they felt a little funny. Um, but over time, discussing with my therapist and him explaining my state of anxiety, the heightened, so not necessarily the anxiety itself, but the level of it can bring on those really crazy symptoms. And I started kind of as I started kind of understanding a little bit more, what I came to kind of realize with like my own research and whatnot was that it was actually my brain like protecting itself. And I was like, wow, that makes total sense. I mean, it feels terrible, and so like a lot of people who have, PTSD or have had trauma, the brain wants to protect them from that pain and that fear. And the way that they're going to do it, it's going to do it is that. And I'm like, well, could have done something that feels good? Not, you know what I mean? Like, why?
Not
But
disconnect from the whole world,
not disconnect from the world and think that you're, just losing it. But
floating in space.
once
That's like the best way to explain it.
yes,
Floating in space.
floating, like you're just, and you're so detached from people, from your life, from what you're doing. And when you don't understand something like that, where your brain's gonna go everywhere with it. It's gonna take you to a place of like, am I schizophrenic? Am I
Do I have
this?
like double personalities?
Yeah, right.
Like what's going on?
You do, and when you're someone who spirals with your thoughts,
It goes
oh
everywhere.
man, that'll take you to places you do not want to go. But I think over time, and I still experience that from time to time now, but it's very different. I'm able to recognize what it is. I'm able to kind of almost talk myself through it. Like you're really anxious right now, Nicole. You're really struggling, and your brain's like, hey, I got to protect you. And I kind of put that spin on it, which is helpful. But I feel like my thing is like, if anyone out there that's watching or has experienced it, it is awful and it's scary, but it's not harming you. It's not doing damage to you. It's not, some sort of disease or some sort of, it truly is just a way that your body is reacting to this high level of stress and anxiety.
How do you feel about the mantra, feelings aren't real? Is that too devalidating or?
No, it's not, because I think that was part of like therapy. We talked a lot about feelings versus thoughts versus and physical, like how it all relates. Like, because I used to say to him, the physical stuff is coming first. My therapist, I used to say, the physical stuff is coming first. And he said, well, maybe a little bit of it, but also you could be having these thoughts that you're not even really realizing, having the physical and thinking it's just physical, and not saying, oh, okay, my thoughts are a big chunk of this. And we know our thoughts can take over everything. If you can't control your thoughts,
The general rule of thumb is that when you're feeling the physical part, it's because your brain is shutting down your ability to process the overwhelming emotion that it's not ready to process yet. So it comes out in jittering, comes out in sweating, it comes out the
because
dry
where is it
mouth.
supposed to go?
Right. So exactly. So the whole mind-body connection, which is very real.
It's it's just crazy that
Yeah.
I'm sitting next to you. I've known you since we were 15 years old, and we've experienced so many of the same things. And to me, it's like I'm thinking to myself while you're speaking, I'm just like, holy shit. I really didn't realize how bad my physical aspects
Yeah.
of my anxiety were until I lost 36 pounds and I wasn't eating and I wasn't sleeping.
Yeah. Sleeping. Yeah.
Right. And this is the whole, not to interrupt you, but this is the whole point. Like, you don't know, because why would you? I mean, I'm not going to walk around town and be like, hey guys, hey, I don't feel real right now. I feel
here,
really
but
weird.
I'm just
Hey,
floating."
just to let you know, do you feel this way? Like,
Yeah.
we're not, that's not how life is. That's not how society is. It's
But it makes
not-
me feel so much better just knowing that, like,
Yeah. Absolutely.
Although I
of
hate that you
course.
struggle with this.
Right. In
You
the
know what I'm
same
trying
way,
to say?
but it I find that relating to someone else, it really can just be such a weight off of you, going back to always feeling different and feeling like you're alone and feeling doesn't understand it. Everybody wants to feel like they're normal or they're in the same wavelength as everyone else. No one wants to feel different. No one wants to feel
It's crazy you say that though, because like I feel like we're living in a time where it's less stigmatizing to say I have a drug and alcohol problem than it is for Mahesh to say he profoundly struggles with depression and anxiety or panic. It's like, what? Like what I said is less like
yeah.
reactive. Like I
No,
don't
that's
get
so
it.
true because I think a lot more people are talking about that aspect, like bringing it into the social media thing. Well, we didn't really have that when social media came up. It wasn't about that. It was more about the posting the pictures and what I'm doing on Friday night. Now it's kind of coming into a place where, people come on and share their stories and they get, you know, 25,000 likes on it. It's so you have a lot more of that.
Inspirational
The
content.
world in
Yeah.
itself is a little bit more open to seeing life through a different lens now, I feel like. Although
Yeah,
we're not where we need to be,
no, no.
but I feel like it's becoming a little bit more accepting of the people who struggle with anxiety and depression. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to fully get into a place in this world where it's going to be
Right.
Last few years, I've struggled profoundly with multiple different obsessive compulsive disorders. You know how odd I feel saying that? Like, what? You're obsessive? You're compulsive? Like, ooh, what does that mean?
Put that on a
It
t-shirt.
means I can't control what I think about. Sometimes I get intrusive thoughts, and sometimes those intrusive thoughts grow legs and
So speaking of
completely take me over.
intrusive thoughts, it was funny. I wrote this down in my notes. Is I saw this meme the other day, and I was like, okay, remember this because I wanted to bring it up, and it's so true to I think what our society wants to show through social media, through whatever, and what it doesn't want to show. So it was a meme, and it was like a city setting, like the picture, and it was people everywhere. Obviously, in the middle of a city, they're getting in cabs, they're walking across the street, they're going in. I mean, it's chaos, but they all have
was it?
bubbles.
Yes, I saw that.
Did
Yes,
you?
and I loved it.
Keep
They
going, because
they
I didn't.
yeah, they have like bubbles, like word bubbles. So like what their thought is.
Oh,
Like
okay.
typing or
Yep. And
iMessage
so-
type of things.
bubbles.
Yeah, no, I should have specified. And yeah, word bubbles. And it was like going through a divorce. It was just found out my father had a diagnosis. Feeling suicidal. My daughter just took her life. All of these different things
Inches away from each other.
inches away from each other and would never in a million years know that. And not that I would want to like promote all those terrible things, but imagine if we could look around in that moment and be like, wow, okay.
We're all struggling.
It gives you that perspective.
Yeah.
That perspective is huge for several reasons. First of all, it stops that spiral and that feeling that this is only happening to me, right? But that goes back to what I was talking about with a 16-year-old that doesn't have the life experience because they only know themselves. They barely know themselves, So here you are, 16. It's all about you, and you're not talking to people about it. You have a hard time articulating the words to define the feelings you're feeling. So there's that. So when Jeff was talking about hitting that bottoming out from that, right? Learning how to accept the resources before you and buying into it, right? That's when the real work starts, And then when you start looking around at other people saying, I'm not the only one feeling this, normalizing your pain, accepting the fact that other people feel pain as well, and educating yourself on the avenues that you have access to that work for you.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that develops over time.
That develops over time because you're redefining who you are. And I think a huge aspect of the shame and fear that we feel is because we expected ourselves to be this person, And I expected to have a great high school. I expected to go to the prom. I expected this. I expected that. I'm going to go to this university. I look great in red, whatever, like you've got this vision. You've got this vision of yourself. I
Yeah.
want to travel, you know.
And that comes from societal norms of
Yes.
this.
So this construct that we have of who we want to be. And then all of a sudden you're knocked on your ass
Yeah, and life's like,
because
"Haha."
life happened.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, right?
But
And it's like,
did your ego do that though?
that's where I'm going, brother.
Sorry.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So we have our ego, and I keep bringing it back to this on like mostly every episode because I really feel this is true. We have our vision of who we want to be, who we're supposed to be, and this effing situation robbed me. I got robbed, and I'm angry. That's bullshit, and I shouldn't have to put up with this. Well, here you are. You're going to have to put up with it, and you have to figure out how to help yourself get out of it, not wait for the prescription medication kick in, because yes, that is an element of it, but that's just a layer, right? That's just part of the dressing up, it's not the complete package, but where's the root of it? The root of it is deciding that acknowledging that this happened to you, acknowledging, like your father said, the breakup happened. This is real. This is life-changing. This wasn't just an affair. This was something that affected you as a person of who you see yourself as.
Who you
Might
thought
have
you were
even-
going to be in your life,
Might have completely even shattered it, into a million pieces.
Right. And then what do you have?
And how
It's
do you
like-
how do you even pick up a million pieces?
That's scary. Right? But until I feel that until you acknowledge the fact that I have to rebuild myself and acknowledge the damage that was done in this emotional car accident that I went through, I'm lucky to survive, and start appreciating where you are, appreciating the fact that you're able to process this such information instead of disassociating, right? And being in that floating space.
or wallowing in your self-pity.
Oh my God,
That's
right.
a struggle too,
Yeah, don't be
though.
that guy.
Yeah. No, and I think that's not to interrupt you, but I think it's so easy to do because you expect that things are gonna you want these things to go a certain way and then they don't. And then I think kind of talking about layers of mental health, it isn't just that when that happened to me, I was sad. I mean, you have someone who maybe already struggles like I had with self-worth, with self-confidence, never feeling enough. Like that's been a very consistent thing with me for my life. And I know that coincides.
And then you find out the answer to your problems is to care about that thing that you do not care about and invest time and energy into building yourself up when you don't like yourself. And it's like,
Or then
how do I
someone
do that?
breaks your heart or something happens and it reinforces, see, all these things that I think about myself are true.
Yeah.
I got abandoned again. I was not someone's priority. I'm not good enough. These are all things
What
that
don't I have
Yeah,
that they
right,
don't want?
right.
Like,
and
all
then
that.
comes the comparison and so anxiety and depression, all these things isn't just that. It's all those other things that we experience as human beings, feeling inadequate and all that. And it's all lumped together. And so not only are we trying to break through just the basic anxiety day to day, but we're having to break through just not hating on ourselves all the time and not
We are our own worst fucking critics.
always, especially when things don't go to plan. Like what I was just saying to Jess is I just shared a meme and it was like in your 30s, one of the hardest things to accept is that your life doesn't look the way that you thought it was going to. And you can stay in that place for a long time. You can dwell on that. You can say, I'm not going to have anything now. It's easy to do that. Something that I'm really actively trying to do is not try to control what's going to happen next because I can't. And to try to say, okay, as long as I'm trying to do the best that I can, as long as I'm trying to work on these issues that I have and like I said, the self-worth, just to always not go to, well, I'm not good enough. That person said that because I'm not good enough. This person did this to me. Not always making it about myself.
Because some people are just evil.
Right. These are all things that like we're not taught how to do.
No.
We have to figure it out. And it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. Yeah.
I think the real therapy comes from you asking yourself, what now? And defining what you want your future to be. And maybe that'll change in a year, 5 years from now. But until that time, if you're not exploring how you can navigate the future coming at you, and you're just waiting there in this stagnant pool, wallowing in your misery,
Waiting for what's next.
yeah, people will just like pass you by. It's like, oh, that poor
Life
sucker.
just passes you by if
Sucker.
you're in that
Yeah.
state.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's the hard work, right? Is moving forward. Where do you see yourself now? How are you maintaining yourself with a job, with a family? Because you did the work to get here, but to stay here and to move forward, I'd like to hear from you as to what your therapy is to help support you,
What tools you've acquired.
right? And you learn, what did
Yeah.
you learn and where are you headed?
So, first off, like I've accepted that it's always going to be a work in progress for me. It's never going to be finished. And I think that's been something that I've struggled with for a long time prior, being like, when's the day where I wake up and I don't have to kind of struggle with these things? I'm trying to look at it in the perspective of like, okay, this is something that I'm going to have to probably deal with. But how is my approach going to be different? How am I going to? And I think just when you accept that this is something that
You're going to
you're
live with
going
for
to
the
live
rest.
with, you can either, look at it in the how I used to, like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to live with this the rest of my life. I can't do it. I can't do it. I think a big thing for me is, it's that thing of like, you don't want to look back. I have to look back sometimes. I have to remind myself of the place that I've come from, what I've gone through, and how I've
Overcome.
gained resilience. Sometimes you don't even realize. I used to always define myself as a very weak person. Weak person. But if I look further, I actually don't believe that anymore. I actually believe
Look
the
at how
opposite.
strong you are for how
Correct.
far you've come
Correct.
and what you've overcame.
And that's been huge for me. That's been huge for me to really give myself that grace, and to not make it into always a negative thing. And it's interesting you talking about like the fear kind of going back and such. I'm currently dealing with some personal stuff now, and there's always that fear in the back of my mind, like, am I going to go back to that place? And I think that's a normal thought,
It's a very normal thought.
but
You can. you can go back to that place
you
quite
can
easily.
go back to that place. But I also then sit there and I say, and and I've gotten these words of encouragement from people who care about me as well, that I'm not the same person.
No, you're not.
I also have learned a lot since then. I also
You have
am-
tools and you have
Right. Yeah. And there was a whole other layer during that time too with the medications. There was that was the perfect storm, is what I always say. It wasn't just going through that breakup and going to therapy and having a tough time. I mean, my brain was actually being affected in addition on a chemical level. But I think just me really working on being proud of myself and where I'm at now, and continuing to do things like this and continuing to be pulled in directions that I think are positive. And I feel like I went into this year, and not even a New Year's resolution kind of thing, 'cause I don't really believe in that, but just to really switch like my narrative and not constantly think, why are these things continuing to happen to me? Trying to figure out what it's teaching me and where it's going to take me. And that's not easy. Believe me, I don't win at that every day. I definitely don't. I
No,
have
it's
my
hard every day.
losses.
And it should be hard, and life is hard, and that's
It
why it's
is.
great.
It is. Yeah. But I think, my experiences have obviously led me to this point, and I find it now getting the opportunity to do something like this where I can speak my truth, and that's just going to help me so much.
It
You
is.
know,
Right.
I hope it helps other people, but I know simultaneously it's helping me because it's
100%.
giving me the courage to really just,
You're
you know,
taking it off your plate,
I am. And
you
I
know?
want it to become where I can be a part of a community that deals with this. And like I think the big thing why I pulled away from doing things like this or maybe being more outspoken is I always thought, well, I'm still struggling. So how can I talk about this and help people? And what I've realized that that's not true. I can struggle myself and still have this perspective and still try to help others or just give them the courage to speak. I don't have to be cured to
No.
do, and the same, I'm sure the same as you
I'm not
guys.
cured.
Right.
It's
Like
a battle
you're
every single
right.
day.
So you're able to do both. You can't,
You just learn how to live with your thoughts in a way that you don't allow them to overcome your day.
yeah. And some days I lose at that.
I
you
do
know?
too.
And sometimes I just throw in the towel. But
there's
you
always
get
tomorrow.
up the next day and you choose how you're going to adapt to it. And believe me, there's days where I'm not okay still, especially with certain things that I'm dealing with currently, but I I have to remind myself that like I just have to keep moving forward. I have to keep taking, one step in front of the other. And I remember this goes along with this with little things, because we all think each day needs to be this big, amazing thing that we're going to accomplish. And that's going to prove to us that we're okay mentally and physically. And I remember the therapist that I saw, he would say, yesterday, you went for a walk and you took a shower and did this. And I remember looking at him like, seriously, like you're telling me those basic things. And he's
Those
like,
are the small
Nicole,
wins
like
that add up.
you got to bed. And I remember I pushed back on that for so long. Like I pushed back and thought if anyone else hears this, they would be like, that's pathetic. Now I know the importance of that. And I know that even if other people want to put you down about that and say, well, that's kind of ridiculous, because I have experienced that, I know that all that matters is that I'm seeing it as a win.
Yes, ma'am.
And I have to know what's good for me isn't maybe good for someone else. Maybe that's not them, but that's okay. That, we're
Different strokes
all
for different
very
folks.
different people. We all, and again, there's still things that I do daily that I know aren't the greatest for me, falling back into old habits, but I have the awareness of it. I don't try to say, oh, well, whatever. I have the awareness. I try not to be so hard on myself about it. But I think, yeah, like the little wins, it's like that's not talked about in our society. It's like work, work, work. And if you don't work all day long and then go and do this, you're not accomplished.
Yeah.
And I find that to be so sad, because what are you telling people that are hurting and are struggling and are just trying to do those things? What are you telling them? You're telling them that they're shit. They're nothing. And I just find that to be, so yeah, I pushed back on that for a long time. And I finally came to the point of saying, no, he was absolutely right. You have to start somewhere,
Yeah. And those
so
small victories are what saved my life.
yeah.
Just telling myself every day, okay, I got up, I brushed my teeth for the first time in a week. Like just thinking back to where I was in my state of psychosis after being on the Wellbutrin, because they put me on Wellbutrin and it caused me to go into a psychosis.
And Wellbutrin, I think, isn't that something that gives you a lot more like
Energy?
energy and
Yep.
stuff, which could have magnetized
Well,
what
my
you were
body
dealing
wasn't
with.
metabolizing the medication, and they put me on, I think it was like 350 milligrams, and I was 125 pounds.
Oh yeah, no.
And yeah,
Yeah,
that's where it all
that's-
spiraled down. And
Yeah.
I remember
So
thinking
see,
back,
it's such interesting like comparisons.
yes, that's why I'm
and-
like, your story to
Yeah,
me is like my
yeah.
life, but in a different form.
But this conversation, in and of itself, talking about this not normalizes, but it doesn't make your pain weird.
No, it makes it feel like somebody else understands.
Other people are going through this. People watching this right now that can relate to what we're talking about are like, oh, I thought that was just me.
Yeah,
Right.
but it's not. It's
Right.
everybody. And
Yeah, and it's this construct of society that, that we're subjected to on a daily basis, subliminally in advertising and everything else, and the expectations that we put on ourselves that are unrealistic,
Our hope with this is that it will make it easier to have these conversations in more places.
where somebody might feel like they can open up, whether it's to me, to you, to Mahesh, to Jeff, to Christian, anybody, we've opened up our platform to give
Right.
people that space to be able to communicate with us if they
Right.
need the help or if
Right.
they need just a soundboard,
Absolutely.
But it makes me feel so much lighter knowing that I'm not the only one that struggles with certain things like medication wise.
Yeah.
And this didn't
Absolutely.
work for me. And it's the back and forth of,
Right.
well, we're going to try this for a month
Because
and go from there.
when else do you hear people talk about specifics like that?
Never.
And that's what was kind of my thing coming into this is like, we talk about, okay, you have someone says, oh my God, my anxiety's so bad today. I forgot my keys and I'm late to pick up my daughter. And I try not to, I guess, get angry in those moments. But a part of me wants to say, okay, but that's basic human anxiety. Like we have to have some sort of anxiety.
We have to have anxiety.
We have to
have
survive.
depression. Depression is a normal feeling. I hate it when people abuse those terms. This is not life changing.
I don't want to be the one to say it, but yeah.
No. But so just very quickly, when you have a DSM diagnosis, right? It has to be there for 6 months, right? But if it's like, I had a shitty day today. Well, all right, me too. It's time to go home now. Make your evening better. You can
How
do
can
it.
you turn it around?
Yeah.
Right.
But it's like, but if it's like going on end and you're feeling suicidal, that's different. But it's like you're stressed because you got to pick up your kid from soccer. No. Go to Starbucks, get your thing, get your kid, make something for dinner.
And I think that's a big thing too that I'm noticing on social media now is when people make certain videos and such, which I'm not saying anything poor. I think it's great to have any sort of
Outlet.
conversation on any platform about mental health struggles. But there are times where I want to be like, you're being a little tone deaf right now. You're not. It's not hitting the way that it should be hitting. People who watch these things and say, I hate to say it, but like first world problems. Like
Yeah, champagne problems.
I
I call 'em.
wish I
Yeah.
had that part of the anxiety. I wish that was my
How mine manifested.
yeah, right. And again, and I don't want to knock it because there are definitely people who I've watched certain videos that I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Like they've shared this story. It's great. So it's not all like that, but there are times where that can be a little frustrating. Because, are you saying this because you want to get a bunch of likes from all these mothers that are influencers on here, or are you really trying to open this really serious conversation? And that's where social media can be great, it can be wonderful. I mean, I use it for my business with my work, people seeing my work and promoting, so it's great for that way. But
You can see how it like enables people. It keeps other
But it
people
can
sick
really
in a
tear
different
people
way.
down in the same moment as well.
it's truly, I mean, sometimes I see certain comments on things and I'm like appalled that people say the things that they say and don't understand how damaging that could be to someone that's right on the edge.
Or do they get off on it and they feel better by knowing they hurt somebody? I mean, yeah, that's a sick mentality. And people need to be called on that kind of crap. Just like we need to be called on when we're not doing the most for ourselves. And I a lot of my clients, I call them on their crap. It's like, what are you doing for you? You waiting for your mom to do this, your teacher to do that. No one likes me. It's like, bro, wait, have you joined a club, or are you just waiting for people to come over to your locker in front of you and just like, hey, you're my best friend now? Like, that's not going to happen. Where's your effort? Where's your sweat? What are you doing? And yeah, people need to be gently reminded that they have to be a participant. Life is a contact sport. You get knocked on your ass, get up. Yeah.
And I don't
Get
like
up.
contact sports, so this whole life thing is just
This whole life thing's
freaking
so
challenge,
hard.
all right?
I know.
But
Well-
you want to know what? We're still here.
Yes.
We're still
Yes.
fighting for ourselves
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
advocating for ourselves, and
Yeah.
we're still putting ourselves first.
And I think
I
if
think
we
that's
didn't
the hardest
and I
part.
think if we didn't experience the things that we experienced, or all of us, like, we wouldn't be sitting in this room. And I know that sounds a little cliche,
But you're 100%
it is,
correct.
and do you ever think about kind of what you experienced in that time frame? Obviously, you wish that didn't happen, but do you think it gave you a different perspective on, like, your life? It gave you different, like,
It helped me slow down
yep,
because
Okay.
I was on a constant go basis. Like, all right, get up, go to work, get the baby ready,
Yeah.
go drop her off, get to work,
right,
finish work, pick her up, go bath time, dinner time. And then
Yeah.
I was in this constant cycle of just going and going and going and going and going. And,
and telling yourself that you were okay and you could
Yeah.
handle it.
exactly. And I
Because-
did handle it, but I
Right.
probably didn't handle it in a way that was beneficial for me and my family.
No.
But everybody around me just thought I was functioning as a normal human being because I made it look so easy.
Which is so scary to piggyback on that, because how many times do we see stories about people who do inevitably take their lives? How many times do we say, oh, we would never know. We would have never known.
Mhm.
They didn't talk to us about it. They were an A+ student. They were on the sports team. They had a girlfriend. It's such a reminder that you cannot take things always at face value. You don't know. And I think the importance is, like, these conversations, because you were in a point where you were tunnel vision,
Yeah, 100%.
and
100%.
you didn't think that you could really talk. I know you eventually started to talk about it once you had to.
And
But sometimes that's too late for people,
yeah.
and that conversation can't be had.
And the worst part is like, I'm going to say this very lightly, but my family has like an envision of me of, this happy, and
Mhm.
making everybody happy around them, making sure
Pressure.
everybody was taken care of.
Yeah.
And, I went during my medical leave, and when I was in the program that I was in, I went to Portugal for 2 weeks. I took a 2-week hiatus by myself. I went to my favorite place on this planet to reset, to revive.
And you have other family there,
I
right,
do,
too?
yep. And
Yeah.
my sister was there.
Oh,
so
okay.
it wasn't like I was alone. Like,
Right,
I
but
think
you
my
were
parents would have been like,
removing
where are you
from your
going?
day-to-day.
I was
Yeah.
removing myself from the chaos because I was working so hard
Yeah.
on trying to be a better wife, trying to be a better person for
Right.
myself, trying to be a better mother.
Did you bring a baby?
I did not. I went by myself.
Would be kind of hard to
To
recharge
take
with a
exactly,
baby.
yeah.
Yeah.
But while I was there, I was still in the program. So from 9 a.m. I'm lying, from 1 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. every single day that I was there, I was in group therapy.
You are a badass. That's incredible.
I did it every
No,
single day.
that
while I was
really
there.
is. That really is, because
I-
that's heavy.
Yep.
That's heavy.
I
It's important, but it's heavy.
Yeah, I didn't want to lose my spot in the program that I was in. They were like, well, you can leave now. You can check yourself out, or you can still sign in. And I'm like, no, I'm signing in because I'm not ready to let go. I'm not where I need to be. But
Little different. I was in my first year of sobriety, and I went to Italy with my dad and attended my home group meeting from Italy via the phone.
so the hardest part
Right,
for
no,
me,
but again, it's you're seeing the importance of it, and you're implementing it into how your life is
It's the
continuing
first
to
thing
go.
that ever truly made me feel better, you know?
that was the program that I did was life-changing for me. But what I was getting at was, the hardest thing to hear from your family is, what happened? You just don't seem like the type of person that has issues.
Where did
Or
things
that are
go
sick.
wrong with you?
Yeah, like, what happened to you? Like, when did you get sick? And I'm like, I'm not sick. I'm just struggling. And it's not that I'm this person who's 86 pounds and is an anorexic person. No, like,
And
there
so,
were
like,
so
what I was
many
saying,
things.
verbiage, like the verbiage
Yes,
that they're
exactly.
saying, they're coming from a place of wanting to understand, but the way that it's being
Presented,
said,
they don't know
presented,
how.
is actually putting more pressure on you and making you feel worse about it. And again, I can't speak for them, but I'm sure they weren't trying to make you feel that way. But I know
No, they weren't.
there was
Not at all.
right, and
Not
there's
at all.
times where I've I've felt like certain people haven't necessarily said it to me, but like have been like, you know, well, why can't you just do this?
Why
You're
can't you
not,
just
why
is so
can't you?
dangerous.
So
And,
Nicole,
or you're not. And we keep having the same conversation and you're not, and you're not. And I want to look at them and be like, you
Doesn't work that
literally
way.
feel like you could explode because
Yeah.
you felt so misunderstood in those conversations.
So thank you for saying that, because I've been married 8 years, okay? I love my husband dearly, but he doesn't come from a background of anxiety and depression. So when I fell face first on the floor, crying for help, like something's wrong. Excuse me, I'm gonna get emotional.
That's okay. I did too.
Yeah,
We both did.
it's hard. It's very hard to be with somebody who doesn't understand what anxiety and
God, you're
depression
making me
is.
cry.
So having to teach somebody that you love so much on what anxiety and depression is very hard.
On top
Especially
of
when
when
you're-
you're struggling.
Exactly.
So now you have
Yeah.
this double whammy.
Sorry,
You
I was
no,
crazy.
listen, don't. It's
Imagine that person being a licensed clinician and they still can't understand
Yeah.
you.
And it took, me to bring him into the program to meet with the therapist
which is awesome.
to have her break down what I was feeling and how my brain works. And I was so thankful that he was so receptive and understanding.
Which is
and
huge.
It really was, because where we were not well, because life wasn't well. I wasn't well. And his biggest fear was, well, if I lose you, I lose everything. And I'm like, you can't put all that on me, but
Right.
just-
And it's learning him having to learn the tools to help you.
exactly.
Because in his defense too, he wants to help you because he loves you, but he doesn't know
Poor guy had no
what
clue.
the hell to do.
He had no clue.
And
clue.
and I've experienced things where
But we've come leaps and bounds
of
from there,
of
because
course,
now
because
I can
yeah.
articulate myself in a better way, other than being
Yes.
like, I'm so this, I'm so that.
On this topic too, it's like I tell my clients and my staff all the time, you could do months and months and months of profound work on yourself and spend 3 hours with the wrong person in your family and
And it
it'll
just
backtracks
undo
everything, yeah.
all of it. So educating the family, doing family process work and family group work,
That was
while
the
we're
best thing that
getting
we
better
could have
is
ever
so
done.
important.
Like him coming in and meeting with the therapist with me, and him being able to get his frustrations out on the table and his uncertainties and things like that, where we had somebody to mediate in between and be like, no, this is why she feels like this. Because I
Right.
can't articulate myself.
Right.
I can talk to you because you understand.
Without a doubt.
I can't
Yeah.
explain myself
you're
to
in it.
him. Exactly. Yeah.
No, and it's interesting you're saying that, because I think there's also the other side too, where you might have a person in your life who has always white knuckled that stuff, who has always been taught, well, you just figure it out, and
Yeah, suck it up, buttercup.
you suck it
Yeah.
up, and you don't talk about it. You put your head down, and when imagine someone like that and then someone like me.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's if you're not both willing to kind of come to that connective place. And I know for me, I experience like, well, why do I have to do things like you do it? That doesn't work for me. If I do that, you'll find me abandoned in somewhere, like, not to be dramatic, but like my body, my brain, my makeup does not allow me to do that. Even if I wanted to, it would eventually all spew out and come out, and it always hurt to be around a specific person that was like that, because I would feel that empathy that they couldn't do that, because that's a whole other ball game of someone who does experience anxiety, depression, various other things that they've gone through in their life. But then they don't understand why you can't handle it the way that they do. And that's just not fair.
Yeah.
They can't put that pressure on you. And I felt that for a long time in a certain situation where it was like, I
Why can't you just
can't
be
even,
like this?
and if it's like, and I get it, there's such a thing as like, being in a relationship, whether it's with a partner, whether it's a parent, a child, where they maybe can get a little burnt out because they're hearing it so often from you. But the one thing that I've always thought about and kind of said and wanted to remind is the frustration that you might feel with the person that you're trying to help or that you're in a relationship with, the things that you don't understand, and I keep telling them to do this and they're not doing it. What they're feeling, what I would like to say to specific people like that is that what I'm feeling towards myself and how much I hate that I can't do it and figure it out is 10 times more than you will ever feel it.
You're
I'm
not
not
telling
just
me something I don't know.
you're not telling me something I don't know. And what's happening is it's making me feel
Like even worse.
1,000 times worse. It's making me feel like just an absolute, sorry, hate to say it, piece of shit. Like, it's making me feel like,
But why can't I
why
do this?
can't I do this? Why can't I? And I'm damaging this relationship because they want something from me that I'm not giving, but
I physically
and
can't get it.
and they're almost making me feel like I'm not trying. And I'm like, you don't know the extent of what I'm trying every freaking day, and of course there has to be certain, boundaries, and I totally understand that, but I think it's very important to know how to talk and to handle when someone that you care about and loves, how to talk to them about it, which is why it's amazing that you guys were able to do that.
Yeah.
But you have to follow through with that.
Yep.
You can't leave that. And
Yeah, it's
then
not a hit and run.
2 months later, he thinks, no, I'm just saying hypothetical, 2 months later, he thinks that you're supposed to be in a better spot and he's getting frustrated with you again.
Yeah.
It can't be like that.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that for that person and you're just not capable as a person, that's fine too. But then you need to walk away from that person, or you need to express, hey, or back off and let somebody else. Right.
Who's a professional.
Absolutely.
Right,
And
who's trained
that's
in-
fine.
right.
But you have to be aware of how you're making that other person
But it's their
feel.
ego as well.
Yes.
That gets in the way. It's like, I can solve my kid's problems. You don't know my kid like I know my kid, type thing. Or it's a cultural thing. You don't understand our culture. That's like such a cop-out, but they don't want to acknowledge. It's hard to acknowledge the pain that someone we love is feeling and legitimize it because now it's real.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I don't know how to help you. That's also real. I so appreciate you coming here and sharing your story with us, and I really hope for those of you watching, if you have any comments that you'd like to share, please throw in the comment section. Please hit subscribe. Please hit like and spread the word, and let's make these conversations,
More broad and more available to the people who need it.
more accessible,
Yes, that's the great word.
So, all right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.